Hey, greetings everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Allen West, and I just want to thank you for taking the time to join me for another Thursday night session on Facebook Live, and we get to share some thoughts, perspectives, and insights, and then we get to hear your questions and answer those questions. I want to start out by kind of giving an update on where we are with this whole COVID-19 issue here in the great state of Texas. These are the numbers that I pull up thanks to the Texas Scorecard, Empower Texas, and Michael Quinn Sullivan, who posts these numbers every day, and I check them out before I head out on my little run. The population of Texas, the Lone Star State, sits at 29 million, about. So far, there have been a total test of 314,790. There have been 27,054 cases for coronavirus. We've had 12,507, that's an estimate, that have recovered. Sadly, we've lost 732 Texans in this coronavirus COVID-19 issue and pandemic. But there are some other numbers that we need to think about and we need to understand and we need to take heart because I think that one of the things that has come to fruition, as President Trump said back early on in March, is that we have seen the cure become an even greater problem than the problem that we originally faced. As of this morning, there were 1,937,838 Texans who are unemployed, so roughly 2 million. As of this morning, there were $2 billion dollars that were spent in unemployment claims. And the interesting issue about this $2 billion dollars that has been spent for these unemployment claims is that somehow that's going to have to be regenerated unless we're going to use the rainy day fund. But that means that the people who were put out of work when they finally do get the chance to go back to work, they may see their employer unemployment taxes increase in order to fill that gap. See, the thing that we find interesting and something that I grew up learning in the United States military is that no plan survives first contact with the enemy. It is so important that if you're on a battlefield, that you retain some flexibility. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that saying, you must be able to improvise, adapt, and overcome. That means you must be able to adjust as you're engaging whatever crisis or whatever pandemic or whatever issue that you're facing. And when I think about being able to adjust, I look at the fact that this is about science. And now that we have more data about the COVID 19, we understand that you have a 99% recovery rate that is out there. We have to understand that the most vulnerable segment of our society are those that are 65 and above, those who suffer from some pre-existing or underlying medical conditions. That's been found out to be true 90 some odd plus percent of the time, being it type 2 diabetes, being it hypertension, which of course obesity. So when we talk about COVID 19 deaths, we're more so talking about related deaths. We're more so talking about not people dying because of, but more so dying with. And we know, and we've covered this in many of our posts on our Facebook and our website, theoldschoolpatriot.com. There's been some real liberal accounting when it comes to how we classify the passing away of Americans and Texans according to this COVID-19. And those words, that word, that reference liberal comes from Dr. Birx herself, who said that about 3 weeks ago. But the real underlying problem that we see here is that we're continuing to go along with the same plan, the shutdown, shelter in place, which I no longer call a shutdown or shelter in place. I call this house arrest. Maybe some of you all recently saw the Wisconsin mother who had two sheriff's deputies show up to her house. Obviously, someone had turned her in because she was allowing her child to go over and have a play date. And they took down her name and put her in record. A kid having a play date. Now, we know that for the most part, anyone 18 and below, you've pretty much seen zero as far as fatalities from this COVID 19. There are exceptions, I'm sure, out there, but pretty much zero. And from 45 on down, It's very minuscule. But I remember growing up, and we used to eat dirt and stuff like that down south. We were hardy kids and stay out and rough house and everything like that. But when a kid got chicken pox, the parents would send their child over to play because they wanted them to get the chicken pox to build up their immunity. So why are we visiting parents who are allowing their kids to go and have a play date? Let me tell you who one of my new heroes are right now. Let me read you a little bit about her. And this just came out a couple of hours ago in the New York Post. Texas salon owner chooses jail over coronavirus lockdown. A defiant Texas salon owner says she'd rather go to jail than close her chop shop in compliance with local stay-at-home orders, according to reports. Shelley Luther has become a figurehead for the Open Texas movement by keeping Salon a la Mode in Dallas open despite a $1,000 citation, as well as a cease and desist legal order from local officials. The city of Dallas accused her in legal papers of chancing irreparable injury to locals with the substantial risk of continuing the spread of the deadly COVID-19. But Luther ripped up the court papers to cheers from supporters outside her hair and nail salon, acknowledging that there was a very good chance I'm getting arrested. When you talk about this woman, a small business owner, further on irreparable damage, well, if we know who the vulnerable communities are from COVID-19, we know we have, a free will. We can think on our own, at least the last time I checked. People should be able to decide whether or not they want to go to her salon. People should be able to decide whether or not they want to continue to be told to stay in their house on basically house arrest. Here is the underlying issue I see for the United States of America. And I'm not so much in agreement with this incrementalism. When you tell the American people on the spot they're out of work, when you on the spot create 2 million people unemployed in the great state of Texas, and I think we're getting close to 30 million all across the United States of America, and the people that have made that decision to tell people that they cannot go out and earn a living for themselves are the same people that, last time I checked, a lot of these elected officials are still drawing a paycheck themselves. The interesting thing is that they're drawing a paycheck based upon the taxes that the people that they told to go home who cannot have a paycheck provide to them. Something's not right with that. And what I see happening, especially in a state like Texas, Texas, the Lone Star State where everyone believes in rugged individualism, there's this collective subjugation that is happening. Think about this here in Dallas County, where a woman in Dallas city limits, she was just out playing her harp on her front lawn, giving a concert to her neighbors. She was given a citation. She's in her yard. Her neighbors are in their front yards, but she's given a citation. We shared with you on our website about the two young ladies down in Laredo, Texas, who were actually the targets of a sting operation. No, they weren't criminal illegal immigrants. They weren't drug lords or anything. One young lady was doing nails in her home. The other was doing eyebrows. They were arrested, fined $2,000, and facing 6 months in jail. So it is not just that you are told you can't come out of your house, you're not being told and mandated what you can do in your house. That's not America. That's not rugged individualism. As a matter of fact, this comes down to exactly what Lord Acton once talked about when he said, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I believe that we have too many elected officials that are just absolutely drunk on the power that they have subsumed away from us by using this issue of COVID-19 as a platform by which they can instill fear, paranoia, and panic in the collective subjugation. We need to get Texas, we need to get our country back to work. We know about the crashing of the oil futures market a couple of weeks ago. That's not what we want, but it's what happened because we drove the demand all the way down. Sure, it's great that you can go now and get like gas for $1.25 or whatever. But think about what has happened to the people in the oil and gas industry who are now filing for unemployment claims. Small businesses in the oil and gas industry, those oil field servicing companies that are going bankrupt, may never come back again. See, I believe that we need to be treated as adults. As a matter of fact, the World Health Organization, you know those guys, yeah, who they just came out and applauded Sweden for not having a lockdown. Now you can agree or disagree with what Sweden did, but the bottom line is that they treat their citizens as adults. And their citizens made the decision as to whether or not they wanted to go out to a restaurant or to a theater or what have you. But when we get to the point in the United States of America where elected officials are starting to play God with a little g and determine who is essential, what is essential, or even what is a legal protest. Today we posted a story from Daniel Greenfield that talked about the fact that anyone that is going out utilizing their First Amendment rights, the freedom of speech, the freedom of expression, the right to petition their government for redress of grievances, that's what opening up Texas, that's what this open up our American economy is all about. People have that right to petition their government. But the fact that you have some people that are saying that if you stand up and say that you want to have our economy open back up, if you're taking part in a organized protest, if you are peaceably assembling, that's illegal. They don't say that when Antifa gets together and starts wrecking and damaging things, or any other far left protest or organization. So why is it that when people are exercising their constitutional rights, they're being told that they can't, that it's illegal? This, ladies and gentlemen, in these United States of America, is a very dangerous path that we're heading down. See, I go back to what Rahm Emanuel once said, never let a good crisis go to waste. We see that happening. And I want to go back again and remind you of what Representative James Clyburn said on April the 2nd. This pandemic gives Democrats a tremendous opportunity to restructure things to fit our vision. Now, obviously, if you don't agree with that vision, it appears that you're deemed illegal. How odd that people can cross our borders and come into the United States of America illegally, but if you go out and exercise your First Amendment rights, you're told that you're doing something that is illegal. That's not going to sit very well. Gavin Newsom shutting down all the beaches. I think that we want people outside getting fresh air in the sunlight because that's one of the things that helps to build up your immune system. But why is it that we are being told that you can't go out? And why is it that we see Americans that are willing to go out and tell on other Americans? Like what happened down in Laredo, Texas, where the report came in and a sting operation was initiated. You know, back in 1985, as a young second lieutenant, I had the opportunity to go through Checkpoint Charlie and go over to East Berlin. And we knew that we were being followed. We knew that we were being watched. And the interesting thing about the East German secret police, the Stasi, 1 in 100 East Germans were informants to the Stasi. Hundreds of thousands of Germans were in prison, some never to be seen again, because of citizens being told that they should inform on their fellow citizens. And how shameful it is that we have someone like a Mayor Bill de Blasio in New York City who's telling Americans to tell on each other. That's not who we are. That's not how we're going to get through this. That's not the better angels of our nature. It is important that we stand up for our constitutional rights, freedoms, and liberties, and especially in a state like Texas. So no, I don't understand this thing about, well, we took it all away from you at once, and we'll slowly drip, drip, drip it back to you. No one should be able to play God with the lives and livelihoods of others. In Montgomery County, Texas, just north of Houston, Harris County, as an example, they have had more suicides than deaths from COVID-19. That is one of those collateral damage events that I talked about as we were entering into this issue with COVID-19, the coronavirus. I used the term carpet bombing, and I talked about how when you carpet bomb, yeah, you may hit the target. There's going to be a lot of collateral damage also. 2 million Texans unemployed. That's the collateral damage. $2 billion in unemployment claims. That's the collateral damage. Crashing of our oil market. That's the collateral damage. Giving a woman a citation for playing a harp in her front yard, or arresting two women in their own homes for providing nail services. See, if you want to stay in your house, you can stay in your house. But if you want to continue to live in fear, that's a choice. But you should not attack people that don't want to live that way. I have even heard some people say that the folks that want to open back up the economy are white supremacists. They're racist. They hate black and brown people. That's disgusting. That's really disconcerting. And it is disappointing that we will have people believe and try to leverage divisive rhetoric such as that against people that want to not sit at home under house arrest, not to be collectively subjugated, but get the opportunity to go out and earn a living for themselves and for their families. How did we get to this point in America? It's very simple. Our once great system of education has become a system of indoctrination. We don't teach and talk about civics. We don't talk about the Constitution. Most people don't understand the Bill of Rights. So therefore, you can have someone like the governor of New Jersey, Phil Murphy, come out and say that the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, is above his pay grade. You can have people that are making these incredible draconian decisions and putting these measures in place that completely undermine our constitutional rights, freedoms, and liberties. But the question is, are we going to stand and allow it to happen? Can we be like Shelley here in Dallas, who said that I would rather go to jail than to see anyone make a decision about my livelihood and my business? Folks, if you don't want to go to her salon, you don't have to. But for anyone to make the decision and believe that they have the right to decide the winners and the losers, to make the decision about who and what is essential in the United States of America, we are all essential. And the most essential thing in the United States of America is liberty. So let me close by reminding you what Benjamin Franklin said. Those who would give up essential liberty for temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. With that being said, let's go to your questions. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you so much, Kenneth Hart, for tuning in. I really appreciate that. Let's see, what else? If you go to our website, you will also see a little bit of Chinese propaganda that I had someone send to me from China. And I think it's something that you would be very interested in finding. And a lot of people ask me what was my take on these 10 questions that the quote-unquote Chinese Communist government was posing to the United States of America. First of all, I don't think the Chi-Coms have any ground to question us whatsoever. We're not allowed to question them. We know about the lies and the deceit. Until the Chinese government allows our Center for Disease Control to go into the Wuhan virology lab, and we talked about that probably about 5 weeks ago, and also find out where did this thing emanate from. Now, I know that some of the intelligence community, and I saw this in an article from Politico today, it said that this whole thing about this COVID-19 being man-made is not viable. How do they know? Have they been over there to check it out and see? Because I found it very interesting that the bats, the horseshoe bats that carry this coronavirus, are from the southern provinces in China. But they are studied up in Hubei province, where the city of Wuhan sits. in the virology lab. So again, I will tell you that this is not about a question of intent. It's a question of the level of intent. Somehow that genome was manufactured and this thing got out. So let's find out, intelligence community, before you start making these assertions. Unless there's something that you know that you maybe have gone over to China, you've done this, and you're not sharing with us. But I will tell you right now, when we see what the FBI did to someone that I know very well, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, there's a lot of folks up in Washington, D.C. You guys are losing credibility. The media will never report on those suicides. The media is at fault for all the panic. It comes from really saying, yes, unfortunately, the media did drive us into a panic state and turned us into mindless lemmings and basically told us that we had to succumb to these orders. And so we now find ourselves, I'm not going to say shelter in place. I'm not going to say lockdown. I'm going to say what it is. We're under house arrest. We have people that are healthy, that are well, people that are not in these vulnerable demographics. Why are they being told that they can't leave their house? Why is a dad getting arrested and being handcuffed in front of his daughter for being there with playing T-ball? That's how absolute power corrupts. Let's see. Alan, your audio is breaking up a little. Might be some infiltration into your live feed. That comes from Bill Petraglia down in South Florida, or is that his son up in New York? Hopefully the volume is coming through okay, and we'll keep working on it. Let's see, who else we got? Melissa Jones, thank you very much. Laurie Thompson, thank you. Douglas Radeka out of Michigan. Hey, Douglas, something's going on up there in Michigan. I mean, you want to talk about absolute power corrupting absolutely. Governor Whitman has really gone off the rails. I don't understand how you can say that, marijuana stores are essential, but, feed and gardening stores are not. That's what we don't want to see happen. We don't want to see elected officials that are choosing what we can and what we can't do. I think the last time I checked, 245 years ago, we said no to that. We might have to say no again at the ballot box. But the thing that I want you all to remember is what is happening. I want you all to remember how people got filled with their own power, what they did here in the United States of America. Because too many times we just let things go right past and we forget about it. We've become such a bite mentality, such a fast food society that we don't remember these things. We better remember this. Barbara Ferrero, our governor of Hawaii, said he is extending our quarantine to the end of May. Exact same thing out there in California. And why? That's not extending a self quarantine, that's extending house arrest. Again, like I said before, no plan survives first contact. You're supposed to improvise, adapt, adjust, and overcome. So why are we continuing down the same path? We're continuing down the path because there are some people that want to see how far they can go with this. I'm sorry. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but all the points lead to that. When you look at the statistics, when you look at what's happening, the fact that here in the state of Texas, we've only had a 2% utilization of our hospital spaces. $60 million was spent down in Harris County, Houston, Texas, on a tent hospital facility that was not used. And yet the county commission down there in Houston, Harris County, just voted to give out $11 million to include to illegal immigrants. This is incredible what we see happening. And the thing that gets me the most is that it's happening in Texas, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, Laredo, Austin. But we have people that say they don't care what the governor is saying, that they're going to do whatever they want in their jurisdictions. No, can't allow this to happen. Colonel, can municipalities challenge nuisance beach and state park decrees? Yes, they can. As a matter of fact, I think that you saw a memo that came out from, and that question came from Jim Less, LKAS, in Southern California. The Attorney General, Mr. Barr, sent out a memo this week saying that the Department of Justice will look at some of these decrees, these mandates, these orders that some of these tyrants are issuing, if they conflict with our constitutional rights and liberties, which telling everyone they want to close the beaches, why? Because you have the power to do so. Because from a scientific standpoint, it makes no sense whatsoever. Now, if there are people that are 65 and above that want to go to the beach, we recommend against that. If there are people that are suffering from type 2 diabetes or hypertension or some other underlying medical condition, we recommend against that. We would prefer you to stay in the house and maybe go in your backyard to get some sunshine or whatever. Or as you have seen, some places are accommodating some of our seniors to say that here are the shopping hours for seniors in the mornings from 7:30 to 9:30. See, that's what happens when you treat people like adults and they can make those decisions. That's what happens when you look at businessmen and women out there and let them make these decisions to accommodate those who are not operating in the realm of fear. Uh, Jessica Spence Sutton, thank you for being a voice of reason and truth. I just try to do my best, Jessica. And it's very unnerving for me that we have a country where we're finding more people that are to be mindless lemmings that can be easily driven into a state of panic, fear, paranoia, and hysteria. Because whenever you allow that to happen, and it's always about the public good, it's always how it's caged, that argument. Nothing good really comes out of that. Connie Page, credibility. Many believe this has gone way beyond credibility. The final phase of this 3.5-year-old coup is in progress now, way beyond credibility. Um, I think that as you look at some of the quotes, like I said, Clyburn, and then also Politico ran an article about 3 weeks ago, and the headline was Economic Meltdown Gives Democrats New Hope in Texas. Who wishes for an economic meltdown on the American people or on the people of Texas? The state of Texas has the 10th largest economy in the world. 10% of Fortune 500 businesses and corporations are right here. Why would you wish that on the people here in the state of Texas or anywhere across the United States of America? So, yep, Rahm Emanuel's little maxim, never let a good price go to waste. I think that's what you see people taking advantage of, especially when you look at some of these governors of these blue states, but also look inside the red states, such as in Texas, and look at what people like Lena Hidalgo, the county judge down in Harris County, is doing, or Clay Jenkins, the Dallas County judge, what he is doing. See, we got to remember this because when these people come to re-election, they got to be defeated. Mark Woody, thank you, Colonel, for doing what you do, standing up and speaking out for us. Next time you come down to my hometown of Ennis to burn some gunpowder, let's get together. Hey, Mark, it was a great time to be out there at the Mile Range, just kind of east of Ennis there, heading up to Alsdorf. It was a great time. And I tell you what, Jeffrey Houston, who is an incredible weapons instructor, former United States Army Special Forces Green Beret sniper, he had me plinking out at 500 yards. That's not too bad for a 59-year-old guy who used to be an artillery officer. You know, in the artillery, if we get within 30 to 50 meters, I mean, that's a hit. But for me to take my Remington Model 700 long range out there and be able to zero at 200 and hit that target at 500, you'll see me back down there and it's plenty. And when we get from under this house arrest, let's all get together out there at the Mile Range there in Ennis, Texas, and do some shooting and have some good old fun. Steve Connor, the house of cards that is still trying to bring down President Trump is beginning to crumble. I've never believed General Flynn had been guilty of anything but being railroaded by the deep state whom he offended. There is no doubt when you look at that memo that was written up, those handwritten notes, the FBI had every intent of going after General Flynn. And remember, one of the people that was there in the White House interviewing him was Peter Strzok. Let's not forget Peter Strzok, Lisa Page. Andrew McCabe knew about it. And we now know that there was a video of James Comey even talking about how, he kind of skirted around the call. He approved them going in and doing that interview with General Flynn. They did not go through the White House counsel. That house of cards is about to crumble. Barbara J. Ferraro, I am in Hawaii, and we are one of the states with a low number of people who have had or currently have the virus. And yet our governor wants us to stay in house arrest till the end of May at the soonest or possibly even the longest. Everyone has to stand up against this. I don't understand how anyone could just lay down and take this. This means that you are abdicating your rights, freedoms, and liberties. And folks, starting now, I don't want to hear anyone say down, shelter in place, shut down. I want people to say how best. That's what is happening. When you're telling individuals that have done nothing wrong, individuals that, for the most part are healthy, individuals that we know are not in the target specific demographic who are the most vulnerable for COVID 19, which has a 99%, well, actually 99.4 or 5% recovery rate. This is tyranny. This is absolute power, corrupting absolutely. And if you allow it to happen, if you think that this will not happen again, now that people understand and have seen how easy it was, man, you've been smoking some of that wacky tobacco that Governor Whitmer up there in Michigan has allowed people to go out and buy. Walter West, my cousin, Laredo is still on lockdown with a mask mandate or $1,000 or jail. Can you believe that? In Laredo, Texas, house arrest. If you come out of your house, you have to have a mask, or else it's $1,000. This is America. To me, that doesn't sound like America, and it sure doesn't sound like Texas. And I think that it's time that Governor Abbott crush these little mini tyrants in places like Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Laredo, and Houston. Let them know that they can try this somewhere else, but it's not going to go here in Texas. And Governor Abbott, 5%, let the people get back to work. Give us the guidelines, protect the vulnerable, but don't make the decision yourself with some task force. You should listen to the small business owners. You should listen to the people. Provide the resources for Texas to be this incredible economic engine. That's who should be making the decision. Tony Rivera, we need the INS and big ship of Marines to clean this corrupt politicians, take them to Guantanamo. We need California back. Hey, Tony, you can't, there's a little law against that. It's called, posse comitatus. You can't be using the Marines in the military. But what you can do is use the God-given right you have here as an American. I don't care what state you're in. It's very Pavlovian. You remember Pavlov's experiment, whereby if you reward certain behavior, you're going to get more of that behavior. If you continue to reward this bad behavior that we see from elected officials, you're going to get more of it. That's just common sense. You can't take away your individual rights. And if there are some of those out there who think this is just great, you don't understand what America is all about. And if you're in Texas and you believe that house arrest is just peaking, you shouldn't be here in Texas. Mike Kuykendall, only losers wish bad things to happen to our country. Yes. Nick Glob, good man right there, folks. I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe me. I'll take that. Gary Dodd, we stay at home and just live nicely. Gary, I mean, that's fine. We all can make that decision to stay in our houses. That's not a problem. But we should not have these collective mandates. That's not what America's about. America's about individuals' rights, freedoms, and liberties. In America, the individual is sovereign over the institution of government. And the institution of government needs to figure out the solutions without infringing upon those rights, our unalienable rights that are enshrined in the Bill of Rights. Laura Mathis Willingham, this is a trial run to take complete control of our resources. Hopefully that does not happen. Jim Lakers, Sabag, thank you for answering my first inquiry. Second one, can the president intervene for California's on the beach and state park issue? He seems to compliment Newsom a lot, ergo we are not hopeful. Jim, again, I think that the memo from the Attorney General, Mr. Barr, will look into these issues of constitutional rights being usurped. And look at what, and remind you, look at what Shelley Luther did here in Dallas. She took a defiant stance. Maybe it will take the courage of people to say, you can see that the beaches and the state parks are closed, but we're going. Can't arrest everybody. But if you lay down and you allow someone to believe they have absolute power over you, they will use it. Let's see. Jerry Johnson, Piacentini. I just feel like we need Trump and Pence to speak and squelch all this. I think it's very important that the president and the vice president come out and say, look, this is where we are with COVID-19. They need to lay down the facts, much the same as we are seeing a lot of doctors and a lot of people doing the research. Talk about where the vulnerable population is, the vulnerable demographic, and understand again that when you talk about the deaths, the 60,000 Americans who have sadly lost their lives because of coronavirus, about 61,000 in 2017, 2018 in the influenza season. We didn't shut down this incredible economic engine. But the thing is that, sadly, I believe some 55 to 60% of the deaths that we have seen in the United States of America due to COVID-19, related to COVID-19, however you want to classify it, and we need to get the truth on that, they've been in one general area. Just not too far from here in Arkansas. Arkansas did not put anyone under house arrest. And in South Dakota, guess what? The Smithfield pork plant is restarting. And they didn't put anyone under house arrest in South Dakota. So we can do this. But we have to have elected officials that trust us and treat us as adults, not subjects, not servants, not serfs. All right, a couple more questions. Connie Sizemore, we need people to take a stand. It's not President Trump's job, it is ours. Connie, I couldn't have said better. It goes back to what President Kennedy once said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. The United States of America got started not because they sat back and waited for a president to do it for them. There wasn't a president. As a matter of fact, on April the 19th of 1775, when the British were marching inland toward Concord, Massachusetts, we didn't have an army. We didn't have a Marine Corps. We did not have a Navy. What we did have were the Sons of Liberty. You had Americans that understood what freedom was all about. And they took it upon themselves to make a difference. Just the same as Shelley Luther. Just a simple Texas woman. A simple American. Small business owner. Salon owner. Said this should not stand. Just the same as a woman once, when she was told that she had to go to the back of the bus, she said no. She didn't wait for the president. She didn't wait for a governor. She didn't wait for anybody. She said, I'm not sitting back there. Her name was Rosa Parks. She was arrested. But from that simple act of defiance, that simple act of courage, from that single woman, it sparked an incredible movement. That's what being an American is all about. Not with someone else to do it for you, but getting up for your own arse and doing it yourself. Jan Lewis Vilgill, even though the government is supposed to be of the people, for the people, and by the people, it is not. Democrats are only in it for power and control, not for the people or the country. I got to agree. And there's a clear ideological divide that we see in the United States of America, a chasm that is growing. Constitutional conservatism, progressive socialism, cultural Marxism, statism, collectivism, whatever you want to call it. But it is undermining the very fabric, the foundation of these great United States of America. Don't forget, back in 2008, when then Senator Barack Hussein Obama said that we're 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America. People clapped. People cheered. To me, that's very disconcerting. Because no one stopped and said, what are you fundamentally transforming the United States of America into? But even more importantly, no one said, why do we need to be fundamentally transformed? There's a fundamental transformation that is happening right now. When Americans are being told, you're under house arrest, what will you tell your children about this time, this period? That mommy and daddy had to stay in the house because some man somewhere said so? We don't want to see that happen. Let me close by just reminding you of something. I remember growing up in Atlanta before it was Hartsfield Jackson International Airport. I remember my dad taking me out to the airport, walking right into the terminal, going right up to a gate, and sitting and watching planes take off, and then going and having a little something to eat. We have a generation of young people in America that never knew that you could actually walk up to a gate in an airport and see your loved ones off as they boarded. That's what happens when you surrender essential liberty for the hope and promise of temporary safety. Because in the end, you don't deserve liberty nor safety. God bless you all. Have a great night. Let's get out of house arrest. Let's open up Texas. Let's open up America. We were not born to be victims. We were made to be victors. Good night.